Hello and welcome to Just a Moment. My name is Kristen Harding. Welcome to the show. My guest today is Mr. Bennie C. Trent, also known as Minister Ki and the Anunnaki teacher. I'm just waiting for him to pop into the studio. I see him. There he is. Mic check.
Mic check. Can you hear
Mic.
me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great.
Welcome, welcome. How have you been doing?
I've been doing great. I've been doing good. Just dealing with everyday stresses and everything and learning the proper ways to deal with those things. I've been just doing more studies on how to, relieve stress and, get positive energy back into you when there's so many things, this negative energy that's affecting us nowadays.
It really is. Well, I like to start out the show, if you don't mind. I like to start out the show with the blessing cards. So let's see what the blessing cards have to say for us today, okay?
All right, sounds good.
All right, The
Here,
first one, the first one is a blessing. Now, when I shuffle these cards, I don't like choose them. They choose what needs to be said. So eh, this isn't like, prescripted. This is what popped up.
right.
So today is a blessing to heal a relationship,
Mm,
a blessing to aid you when a relationship seems to be a struggle and you cannot find a way to mend your torn heart. This blessing is yours, a charge of energy with which you can reweave the threads that once gently held you in suspended relationship. Once there was understanding and intimacy, ease and comfort, but for a while now there may have been trouble and discord, a sense of displeasure that stains the days and makes the time you spend together uncomfortable and self-conscious. So take now this blessing and pour it upon the troubled waters between you.
mm.
I forgot to show you the word. Oh, there we go. See? All right. And then it says, where there is uneasiness, let the expression of what causes this to be found. And if it be found within each other, let a gentle disentanglement begin until the source is discovered and is cured without strain and blame. Let your hands reach out to one another and feel the warmth of your humanity pulsing through the blood beneath the skin until the comfort of each other heals the coldness that has come between you. Let you
Wow.
begin to speak from the heart, flowing and strong, even if the voice that sends the words forth seems to choke within your throat at first. Let understanding begin to glimmer and grow, and the willingness to give and the openness to receive be explored until the hearts that lie within you both open up and bloom within the new care and tenderness with which you agree to hold each other's most cherished dreams and hopes. Let words soft and true fall between you until you begin to trust and arise from the bed of nails that you have slept in since this disharmony came between you. Blessed
Wow.
be.
Blessed. Amen. It's it. A bed of nails comes between you.
Yes.
That it feels like that sometimes when you're in relationships and you're going through a few different things and you don't know how to get out of. I mean, I will say that I've been through that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna speak too much on it, but it does. It feels like just stickiness. Like you're around somebody, you care about them, but something just ain't right there, and it's just like you're just
The
being
energy,
agitated.
the
Mm,
energy just feels off. I mean, I've experienced it with people I dearly love, and
mhm.
it almost feels like they're not them, right? It's like,
Correct.
who are you? And then you change your energy, and then they
Yeah.
change their energy, and then you're back to at least being friends.
Right.
Because I believe that no relationship can work without friendship. Because
Right.
you can know somebody, absolutely love them, and not like them much. You know,
Right.
there are things that people say and do that are baffling to me, and yet they make perfect sense to them, but not so much to me.
That one right there is one of those things I go through. It makes perfect sense to the other party, where to me I'm like, it don't make no damn sense. How why would you even think to, you know, it comes a time, like I said, when you get in those type of relationships where your situation's starting to get rocky, and you know you love someone. It's like you already have that division wall between you. It's like sometimes they can just say things and you're like, this irks
And
the
that
heck up
that
out of me.
just that just adds to the negativity, and it builds that wall even thicker. And
Mhm.
how do you even find a friendship? How do you find your way back to each other if you don't have that friendship? I just don't understand. And for me, I'm kind of a long-term relationship person. I have had very beautiful relationships. Some of them last longer than others, but I do not regret one of them.
Right.
And I don't know too many people that can say that. So I feel
True.
really, really blessed. So
Man,
my advice to those people that are out there that are troubled right now, that do not know how to find their way back to their partner, spouse, whatever, remember to love yourself first, and remember the friend and the attraction that you first felt, and then build from there. And you'd be surprised, you might just fall in love all over again.
all over again. When I tell you, Kristen, you've had, good words of wisdom dealing with relationships. And I tell you, I look to you and a few other people that are in my life. I hope they're watching. One of them is my friend Kenny Harlan that I went to high school with, is graduating. Another one of them is my a couple that's been together since I can remember, way even before even high school. That these those people are role models to me, because with me in relationships, I don't know. I think I've just had a bad just camp with them. I mean, maybe it's because some of the things in my life, but then I had to understand also about myself, though, that
Mm.
that I have abandonment issues, not being abandoned by people, but not trusting and giving my full trust to someone, where that becomes an issue, where I'm already going into a relationship with a flaw. But, like you said, we've all been flawed. But I will tell you, Kristen, that, thank God for you, because you've even counseled me on a few things that I've been through, and everything, dealing with relationships and getting back to myself. And it was so key that you used to tell me, breathe.
Breathe.
Breathe. That's what you told me to start first with. Breathe.
Just remember, that's
Take a
all
deep
you
breath.
have to do. Take a deep breath and let it out and breathe. And if you can just do that, you'll get through it. You really will.
And what was so wonderful when I started doing that, because I I'd be at a tense time when I talk to you, I'd be, so upset. And then it was just so simple. When you just text me, you was like, Benny, just breathe. Took a deep breath, and it's like the tension just kind of went away. And that
Yes.
oxygen gets to that brain. And I had, got a chance to start thinking about my part in it, that I can't control the other person's part in it. I can only
Exactly.
control myself, is
And
what I
you're
had to realize.
welcome to it.
Hmm.
That's all we can ever do. We can't control other people. All we can do is be so centered and grounded that we look at the situation with softer eyes than maybe sometimes it deserves. But
Yeah,
because we love them, we are going to look at it with a soft viewpoint and ask, what is this teaching me?
right.
And
That's the
when you
main.
do that, it shifts the energy.
That's the main thing. What is it teaching me? What are you learning out of it? And that's not even just in relationships with your mate, but even relationship with friends and business people and things like that. Because a lot of people have the work related stress because of politics at work, or you
Right.
got your peer pressures and friendships. And like we were saying earlier, there's so many different things that can get us just so worked up and just angry at the whole world and ready to go punch your car out or something like that.
Well,
But
exactly. We've been programmed to be that way. We've been
right,
programmed. If you're in corporate and you want to get anywhere, you have to outdo your fellow employees in one
right,
way or another. For me, I was very good at taking the most heated, obnoxious, unhappy customers and calming them down and saying, I see your point. I understand why you'd be upset. And
right.
let me fix it for you. And if I can't fix it for you, call me back so it gets fixed.
You can
You
work it
know,
out, huh?
you would
Hmm.
be very surprised at how quickly they calmed right down.
That's true. And that what's kind of crazy that you say that. That I've been in sales most of my life before I got back into healthcare, like I was. When I was in Houston, Texas, and even before then here in Kansas City, where I'm back again. And the preacher, we had a pastor. When my father was a deacon, that Pastor Henderson, well, he was actually a bishop when he left. But he used to make fun of me when we go to the church. He'd always call me out. He was like, "Oh, there goes Deacon Benny Trent's son out there. Guys, you guys, if you need anything, go talk to him. He can sell ice to Eskimos." And he just have the whole church laughing, looking at me. But it was good memories. But that's what I said. I was so good with dealing with my profession, but my personal life is where I had problems because, like I said, I had, those issues. And I think that they stemmed a lot from when my mom passed, Kristen, because to me, with going through a lot of rough spells during, my younger age and, being a bad boy, my mom was always there for me. I mean, even in when I was in prison and things like that when I was young, there was a letter every day where I had girlfriends and all kind of other stuff. And some people they're there for you one minute and there for you not. And it taught me a one thing about relationships to basically make sure that I'm happy. And
Right.
I got, just so used to that to where this woman, my mom, she's the only woman that ever really loved me truly, where it was just that unconditional love and that bond that we had.
Yep.
And that was one of the reasons why, when I came back from Phoenix to take care of her until the day she died. Now, rest in peace, mama. But the point is that, that was one of the things that affected me back then. And I still have that's over me. And thank God for friends like yourself and, Tony and all you guys that give me that, positive affirmations to look into myself first and then work on that situation. And
Yes.
that's definitely what I had to do. Let me send out
Because
a hi. I see Omni Collective Creativity, Christopher Peoples, Roar, Mr. Paul Harding, your husband and mate. I have you guys' old wedding picture in my pictures, and I keep it all the time. That's why I say you guys are role models to me. And hi, Rachel Robertson. How are you guys doing out there? I'm sorry, this is Kristen's show. Let me quit trying to take over.
you're done. You're fine. When we are podcast hosts, whoever doesn't do it, we just step in and do it for you. So not a problem. But I totally agree with you, Benny, and I think that loving yourself first is not selfish. It's the
Hmm.
foundation for what you can give to others.
Right.
And when
And
you realize that, and you realize that love love is an action and a gift, and it's something that, in my humble opinion, is part of the Christos consciousness. He
yes.
was all about love. And when I studied the ascended Sananda is the name of the ascended Christ. His viewpoints are all about love. And even Elizabeth April, who is a very talented remote viewer, that I plan on reading her book shortly, because she's got really keen insight on what's going on right now. Even she, um, oh, I just lost my train of thought. I was going to make a parallel there, and what were we talking about?
Talking
My train
about
of thought.
the ascended masters when you was studying the ascended masters.
And it was Jesus. And something about, oh yes, that she had just remote viewed and connected with his energy, and that what we have forgotten is that he is us, that we are him, that we
Hmm.
are his children, even though he's in this, super high woohoo
Right.
density, we still can connect with him. And
Yeah.
she said that a lot of people have forgotten that they belong to something bigger than themselves.
So true.
And when you remember that and you realize that we are like just a flower in the universe's garden, we can get along a lot easier.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
And
I have a few questions for you. Wanna
oh
play?
boy, before you start, can I say something to what you had just said? Because you know me, I'm a 24-hour student. But it was something that I was watching yesterday, and it was speaking about that when people believe that Christ is coming back for them, and that physical revelations, ideology. What a lot of people don't understand is that's what Christ was trying to explain to us, that God is in us. We are him. And that Christos is that Christ coming back. He wants it to come back into us. He was like
Yeah,
the body is the temple, and Christ
yes,
was in the temple, and that's inside of us. So when we get to our higher selves and understand that we have to get to the Christ consciousness, or that Christos, that is Christ in us. So
yes,
we have to definitely get away from thinking everything that you read at face value, but also look at the face value, the symbolism in it. And then also there's more text than just what was written in the Bible. You have the Gnostic texts that believed it because they didn't see him as what others, the Bible portrayed him to be, where he
right.
was an ascended master showing us that what we have inside of us, because everyone thinks that just this flesh and this life is the only thing, but he let us see that it's more to us than just this. That the soul is just
Exactly.
in this body right now, but the soul is going to move on after the body. You know, the body's gone, but we still
Right.
have something in us, and that's a part of him.
And I think every time we choose to do good instead of not so good, every time we choose to help someone out, every time we choose the path that's harder,
Hmm.
that's the Christos consciousness.
Yes, it is. It is. But
You
I'm
ready?
ready for you. You got a page over there. Hold on. Let me stretch out. Let me get my arms ready. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. You got to be ready for Kristen's questions. She asks me some good ones all the time.
That was from Rocky, wasn't it? That's awesome. All right.
I'm
First of
ready.
all, tell us a little bit about the most amazing experience you've had so far.
Most amazing experience. You know,
Yep.
I love that question because I had seen that you had asked Susan and Aurora that, and I was want to answer that.
I know
Would
that's why.
okay, now let me ask you on that question. Does that can it be anything, not just in my
Yeah,
physical thing?
anything that defies explanation, that was supernatural, was unexplainable, was anything just out of the ordinary that kind of proved to you that you were on a path different from other people.
one thing that stands out to me that I must say that there's a couple of them, and that's where I had to, when I understood more about what, when I was street minister out there in Houston, when I transitioned from being a street minister to praying for people, to choosing a life of healing and not just ministering out of the Bible, but making sure that people understand all the knowledge, that even where the origins of the Bible and stuff came from. But at that time, I had had a near death experience, an NDE. I've told you about this before,
Yep.
that my appendix had busted because people don't know. I just here recently got over liver cirrhosis, but at the time I had liver cirrhosis, which means you have scars on your liver. And my appendix didn't, just, they wasn't took it out, it burst. And if people know that your appendix holds all the bile in your body over your whole lifetime, which you can't excrete from, it collects to help you go on. So this busted inside of me, and it filtered all through my body because I have, like I said, scars on my liver from liver cirrhosis. And my eyes turned like a bright, like orangish red. And they put me in emergency surgery, which I died a couple of times, they said, on the table, and they just brought me back. But during the experience, Kristen, I'll tell everybody else out there, and friend of ours, Sarah, she loves this story for me to tell it, that when I went into the hospital, because like I said, if people know anything about me, that I love history, I love the origin stories, I love the Egyptians, I love thought, I love the biblical Enoch from the Apocrypha books, and his ascension and everything. So with all these things wrapped in my head, with my new thinking that I came into, that when the situation happened and I was on the gurney and I felt myself slipping, I felt myself slipping off into death, the other world, or whatever, because I started not to feel my body anymore, because the bile had got ran through my bloodstream and everything else, and I was going. So when I was there, I prayed to God. I prayed to God that send thought, which is the God of wisdom, is the God of wisdom. I told him to send thought, the God of wisdoms, to be with my doctors and everything, and give them wisdom to save my life. Uh, I can hear you guys, right? And I'm on a show. Hello.
Hello, we're good.
I'm sorry about that. But Kashi says, hey to you. My client back here was saying something. But I pray to God, the Almighty Creator, to have thought come, the God of wisdom, to be with my doctors so that they can have the skills to save my life. And then when I was laid on the, hold on real quick, Chris.
No problem. Sometimes Benny's a caregiver, so sometimes he has to pop off, take care of a situation, and then pop back on again. So that's what's going on. Okay, now put your mic back on.
That door for me, please.
There we
Yeah.
go.
So after praying to, like I said, now at this time I was on the table there. They got me in the hospital, and you see people running around, and it was like, we got to get him to emergency surgery. He's passing away. So I'm hearing all this, but I can't move. And I'm sitting there on this bed, and I just started imagining some clouds started coming around me, Kristen. And I asked God, I was like, if anyone knows the story of Enoch, that Enoch ascended and got transformed into Metatron. And there's also a Metatron frequency and energy. So you know me, I'm a doodlebot. I think very deeply. So I asked God to send Metatron into the machines, send the Metatron frequency to help save my life and sustain my life, while thought helped the doctors.
Right.
Now the key to this is the thought is the cause of it all. And if anybody understands that definitely, hold on real quick. Can you turn that light back on, please?
There we go.
Yes, I'm having technical difficulties here. So
Christopher, Christopher says evoking the Metatron God thing is 1111 hertz. So it will be 1111 hertz.
right. So, so yeah, I got to praying deep and hard just to, and I kept repeating that, because I was like, I knew I was dying,
Yeah.
Kristen. I felt, had already felt the pain because when the appendix busted, it felt like that just lava was running through my body like
Yeah.
hell.
It was
And
it was poison because your body was fighting sepsis, jaundice, and all of the horrible like bile. I mean, bile contains all that infectious stuff, if I remember.
all everything infectious was in,
So,
and even worse
mhm.
because it had gathered because this is what I was. Let me see, I'm 57 now, so I was close to 50 at the time. So you got to think 50 years of mess just built up in your body just got released. So I'm in here dying. So,
Well,
with doing all that praying, all of a sudden I slipped under because they finally got the gas on me and everything else. And like I said, the clouds even became more clearer as I was slipping off into, the anesthesia. And then this is where the amazing part is right here, that when I was under, that I don't know if the people in Kansas City might know that my nickname was Kid. That's why I go by Minister Ki. But when I was under, this cloud that I was in, I was just kind of drifting and everything, but my consciousness was still aware, and that's what was kind of surprising to me, that I could feel myself. And you know how they say, you have those out of body experiences. It was out of body, but I was seeing through my eyes. I wasn't looking at myself. How some people say they see themselves. I could see what was going on, but my feet and things like that. So of course you had a spiritual experience, what Chris was saying. So during the experience, all of a sudden, I'm scared of heights. And I all of a sudden was upside down and I'm hanging over a cliff where I don't even see the bottom, but I could see the mountain face wall, just like a rugged cliff. And I was being held by my leg, like you hold a baby. I was being held by my leg by a great big hand. And in my mind, I understood that was God.
right.
And he was holding me out on this cliff. And he asked me, he was like, "What's your name?" And I told him, I was like, I'm scared, I'm hanging down there, Christian. I was like, "Kid, put me out further, help me out further." So I was like, "Oh no, Lord, don't let me What's your name?" And I said, "Benny Trent." Once I said Benny Trent, Christian, it was like the hand went back. I was put down. All of a sudden, I woke up and I'm in the hospital, looking up, looking around. Nurses looking at me, and the first nurse that was right there, she's like, "Oh, he's back." I was like, "Where did I go?" I was like, and the memory of it stayed in my head, and it still does.
Yep.
And that right there is one of the things that's absolutely remarkable to me, that I left this living plane and went to this other plane and could remember it, and it was so clear to me. So the
Yes. And
understanding I got of it was know thyself,
yeah.
just like it says in all the ancient writing, know thyself, know who I really was. And that kid part, my nickname and the gangster part of me in the past, let that ego go and go straight forward with Benny and what I was meant and here to do. So
That
that's
perfectly
one.
it perfectly segues into the next question. Before we answer that, though, um, I had a similar experience with a near-death experience, and I went down because for me, I had had a child, and there's something that can happen after you have a child if everything doesn't like heal properly. There can be some, let's say, blood is expelled. Okay. So 8 days after I had my second child, I had what is called an 8-day hemorrhage. And I almost died. And I was literally outside my body looking down at myself. I saw everything that happened clear as day. And the only reason that I came back to my body was because my most beloved relative stood in my way and wouldn't let me continue down that beautiful road, even though I didn't want to go back to my body. I didn't. I was free. It's
Right.
so hard to go back to pain. But
Mm,
she said magical words. And those magical words were, what about your children?
mm, right.
And boom,
Right.
I was back in that pain-filled body and I was fighting mad. I was like, I was ready, I was willing, I was able, I was like, there was nothing that was gonna keep me down. Well then
Right.
life went on and I had another out of body situation because I had a car crash. And
Mm.
in the car crash, I believe that, well, they had to cut me out with the jaws of life. So let's just say that, okay?
Get her out of
Mm,
there.
yeah. And I believe I died because I had an experience with what I believe is an angel. And I came back from that experience with the realization that while we're here, we can change things and make things better.
Yes.
We can take situations and work through them so that when we go to the afterlife, we don't have unfinished business.
Right.
And
Erase
I
those
don't know
times.
why I hadn't connected that before,
Hmm.
but let's just call it a wake up call in my 30s. And so, being that I will be 63, I've had a few years to practice what I preach.
Get out of here. You know you ain't nothing but 25 years old, Christian. I ain't letting you tell me that story like that.
No, honey. No, seriously, I am. And my son just came back from training in Texas, and he is in his 40s. So I can't be 25 because we don't do negatives.
Oh dang. Well, hey, you went back in time. Hey, you know.
Okay. I'm a time traveler. I'll take that. I'll take that. So,
You know,
silly
I,
question.
I've been discussing that with a lot of people because like I said, these videos I've been watching lately have been awesome. And it was one I was watching. It talks about, it's called conspiracies. I'll share it out to a bunch of people, but it goes back to like the L. Ron Hubbard and the Aleister Crowley experiment that happened
Mhm.
that was supposed to open a portal that they didn't close. And then in the 40s, that's when the heightened UFOs started coming more, and there was more different cryptids, Bigfoot, and all these different things started happening after that. And I was just, my brain, like I said, I doodlebot sometime. And, I was just thinking about the time travel paradox, where they was talking about a gentleman that made over in England, that I forgot the lady's name that financed it, but they made something like a time portal machine that's in a grave site over there still to this day that they're unable to get into. Now, what it made me think about was they talk about the paradox of going back in time. And even the
Mhm.
AIs, when I asked the AIs, the metas and the Gemini that I use, it talks about that the conception of man-made time machines have only been theorized to go forward in time because
Right.
of the paradox that if you go back in time, where you could even erase your own existence,
Butterfly.
and things of that sort. And so
Mhm.
what they say is that a lot of the UFOs or some of the things that we see that come back to us, that some people do get to witness, that it's us that went to the future, because some
Right.
people do believe that we live in multiple dimensions even at the same time, because
Yeah.
this is the now. There's nothing but now. There is the future, the past, and now are all running parallel to each other. But even
Well,
ourselves, even with that Christos that you were talking about earlier, and that Christ consciousness, and that's what Christ was letting us understand, was that the past was us. The future is coming, and that's us too. And this is a memory. What we're
yeah.
doing right now is living a memory of these past lives. Because while we're awake right here, we're really asleep. When we're asleep, we're really awake. Because if we understand that this life right here, it's really just a holographic memory. that we're producing through our consciousness, which our soul is getting this experience, but it's going to move on to more experiences and gain more experiences. So when I thought about the time travel thing, because I was asking a bunch of people, I was like, would you rather go back in time or would you rather go forward in time? Let me ask you that. Which would you rather do if you had the possibility to do? Would you rather go to the future or would you rather go to the past?
Future.
Me too. That's what I said. I don't want to go back through something that I studied. I want to see something new, like what
Well,
you.
I have an unusual belief. Excuse me. I have an unusual belief that we are going to be ascending, that Gaia will be ascending. So I want to see what ascended Earth looks like. I want to see this peace and harmony. I want to
Right,
see the replicators that make the food that, so we don't have to, use animals anymore to stay alive. Now, I'm a
right,
carnivore. I love my beef. It's my very favorite food in the world. And some people say, "What's your comfort food?" I'm like, "Steak." It is my favorite like comfort food, right? Um,
right,
However, if I could have that without having to harm an animal, I'd rather do that. But I do not buy into these veggie
right,
replacements because they're not healthy for you either. And anyone that thinks that
right.
plants are not alive, put a potato in a microwave, hear it scream, and tell me that it's not alive.
No, it's alive.
It is.
Everything matters.
Exactly. And because of that, I actually thought about that breatharianism where they learn how to just soak in the energy and that's all they need. That
Hmm.
would be ideal for society if we were trained like that from birth. But I
Right.
can't see people, volunteering to do that, just 'cause. So,
And
question.
mhm.
Oh, no, go ahead. Continue your thought.
I was just thinking about, like I said, these a few of these shows that I've watched here lately just really have just opened my mind to different type of theories and concept. I'm always coming up with, hypotheses and different theories. But it talked about how like Babel, the Tower of Babel,
Mhm.
that back then that those people had the ability to communicate all these different people, and they weren't using voice. They wasn't using talking. They could communicate just through a form of something like telepathy. So that was what one of the things that the gods of the earth divided when they talk about the Tower of Babel. That some of you guys need to go investigate that story more because it's way more to it. When you understand that these people had a communication and that we had these abilities to speak without using these words, because the words come out because words have frequency and words come from spelling because and those are spells where we wasn't spelling back then, we were communicating even without having to speak to each other. And that's where a lot of division came on earth because someone asked me the other day, was like, how did so many different nationalities and different languages and all these different things, because we were divided. We was divided for a reason to keep us away from, like how the Ankh represents the higher self and the lower self, away
Right?
from the Christ consciousness that we need to be at.
Well, and it has been intentionally forgotten. There was a push in the 80s to bring the truth to light of what was really going on in religion. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't healthy. It was not
Right,
good. It was a bunch of people in power harming others. Whether it was psychological, physical, sexual, or whatever, it was still abuse.
right,
And when all of that came to light, suddenly churches were suspicious. They were no longer a safe haven. They were a place it was almost predatory.
mm,
You were actually safer on the street than you were in church. That blew my mind when a teenager told me that. And I apologized over and over again because I'm like, you should never, ever have had to not feel safe in church. And that's when I started really thinking about it because I am a minister. I started studying in the 1990s to become a minister. I was ordained. I literally can do, marriages and funerals and baptisms, all that stuff. I, I am licensed with my county.
Mhm.
However, Christianity got such a bad name, and people are just like convenient Christians. They pick
Yeah,
apart and
good
and take
word.
what they want, and then they throw it at each other like it's a dart. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, that's not the message I want to be passing on.
Right.
So when you think about, okay, one of my favorite books of the Bible is First John. And he
Mm.
says, "You are of God, little children. You've overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in this world."
Amen.
And if you think about that, if you let that Christos consciousness guide your life, you're not going to be in service to self. You will be in service to others because you will want to find ways to bless other people. It's just natural.
Right.
See a need and fill it. I always say Source doesn't have hands and feet. So we, his people, have to be those hands and feet.
That's right. That's right. And Christopher, I guess Omni Collective Creatives is the second phase of the Atlantean tragedy. Not sure. Atlantis, especially the children of the law of one used telepathy, but it decreased as language got more used. And that came about more so in the second phase of the Atlantean tragedy. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. And yeah, you kind of when you said those convenient Christians, you made me think of the other extraordinary thing that happened to me in my life that really, really woke me up. And this was after I had that experience. So then, when I had the near death experience, after that, I came out just the hospital, and like I said, the clouds looked different, and I just seen things differently,
Mhm.
and I wanted to really see if it was really God talking to me. So at the time, I had one of my clients was I don't know if I was in Houston when we had spoke, the first time, but her name was Aisha, and Aisha, she had mental problems from early childhood abuse, and she had split personalities and things like that, and sometimes that she'd get locked into what they call a mental box when she would get stressed or feel fear, to where she'll just close down, not speak to you. And even when she was driving, she got through because of somebody road raged on her, and she locked up. And I had to get us off the highway in Houston doing 70 miles an hour with her hands locked on the wheel, just scared to death. But the experience happened when we were helping her father get transitioned from a home into a nursing home.
Mhm.
And I was into a prayer. I believe it's Luke 13, and I was having her practice this prayer that blessed are those who hear the word of God and put it into practice. And
Okay.
that saying, because I tell people a lot now, I am a spiritual person. I'm not a spiritualist, meaning that I believe in the Almighty Creator and God.
Right.
Religions are a way of life. So when they say you're this religion, that way, those are the ways of life that these people chose. That's why there's so many different sects of Christianity, Muslim, and all the different religions. So with Aisha, her father, he was an imam and over the Islamic Society of Houston. So the transition, and she wanted to break from that and learn about Christianity. So I
Mhm.
kept trying to get her to memorize just the simplest of the prayers, because they say the more prayers that you learn, that you should learn more. As a minister, they tell you, the Lord's Prayer, and Lord is my shepherd, and these different ones that I really love, John 3:16, for God so loved the world. So I was teaching Aisha the prayer, blessed are those with the word of God and put it into practice. So I told her, I kept telling her, just repeat it. I was like, repeat it. At that time, I said, God is going to show you when you get this right, how when you understand, blessed are those who hear the word of God and put it into practice. And I explained to her, I said, hearing the word of God doesn't have to come from God, come from a preacher. It could come from yourself. Just understanding that you are part of God. So listening to yourself. So all of a sudden, she said, blessed are those who hear the word of God and put it into practice. All of a sudden, Kristen, right, we were sitting in the car and talking, and right on the dashboard, all of a sudden, just a small beam of light came right down and hit right in front of us. We both looked, and it was like, I was like, and it just stayed there for a minute, but it wasn't just a white light. It was like, seeing like a colorful orb that just came down in a stream and just hit right there on the dashboard and stayed there for a second. So, me, I looked at her, she looked at me, and she's already, like I said, I was hoping it didn't scare, but it didn't scare her. She was like, wow. So then the light went away. So immediately I said, we have to test this. I told her, I said, say it again. She didn't say it right again. I said, come on, Aisha, please for me, say it one more time. So she said it perfect again. Blessed are those who hear the word of God and put it into practice. Christian, all of a sudden, once again, wow, there's the light. It just came right down there. It was cloudy outside. There was no light. It just came, shined through the window, right on that dashboard to show me God is alive. And that was something paranormal, supernatural that gave me the faith that I got because God showed me, I got you through this and I'm here. I'm here for you. So I was on the right trail and doing what I was doing to help her and Miss Kathy and all the work I was doing. When I stopped being a street minister, even though I still was out there helping the homeless and making sure they got fed. So it just inspired me to even see more because I seen it's more than what we take in every day as a normal life. Most people come home and they watch TV and they do this and they forget about all the different things that people did in the ancient times. There was no TVs. There was no all these little different video games. They were outside with the shoes off, grounding themselves, working with trees, working with nature, working with animals. And it just kind of woke me up to there's more to life than what I had just been ripping and running my whole life. I had been doing all kind of stupid stuff, been to jail, prison, changed my life, used that as my testimony to try to pull people away from that. And then I've got that awakening to understanding what the Christ consciousness and the Christos and energy centers and chakras. And it just ignited me. That set the fire on me. When I turned on fire to learn, I got to learn everything. So I asked God, I prayed to God to give me the permission to learn the things that were considered taboo in the upbringing that I had as a Baptist Christian. And I heard a voice that said, please do, son. And that's why, I consider myself a polymath, where I study a little bit of everything. I study all the origin stories and, from astrophysics to down to, the esoteric knowledge, because I believe that they're all tied in together. That,
They
a lot of, yes, ma'am. I know that you want to say something on that because I know because you had told me at one time when your realization of that also. So where it's more than just what's in these books, you
yeah,
know.
it
It's
is a
in,
road, it's a path, it's a challenge.
yes,
But
ma'am.
it is really worth it. Keep asking every day, if you really want to follow the path that you are intended to, ask
Mhm.
for it.
That's
If you
right.
want to manifest the things that you need in your life, ask for it. There are things that you can do in your life to get you unstuck. Ask
Got
for them. Because when you are open to change, that's when it can happen. But if you're stuck in a rut, you're not going to change. You're going to dig your little heels in and say, no, I don't want to
right.
change.
Christopher says learning is just remembering. True.
Yes, it
So
is.
true. And
It's
and a good point to what you had just said also that and like I said, trying in my shamanistic learning, as a wounded healer, that I mean, I think I know you understand the theology, but just for those that don't understand what a wounded healer is someone along the lines of a shaman, or some people that might say they're shamans. This is really what they mean, that they're a wounded healer, meaning that I've been wounded, meaning I've had trauma and I've been wounded and I've had to learn to heal myself. I can't heal you, but I can tell you how I healed myself so that
Yes.
you can heal yourself. And
Yes.
that's what that as humans, that's what most of us need to understand and learn, that we carry on so many traumas, childhood traumas, the PTSDs, work related, like what we were talking about earlier, relationships, these
Yeah.
things that are traumatizing our heart, heartfelt, and it hurt us. And we think, oh, I did this wrong, or this was bad that I
Mhm.
did. And we have
Right.
to change our thinking, like what you were just saying, and give ourselves the positive affirmations, understanding that there's nothing bad. It was an
Mhm.
experience for us to go through, for you to
Yes.
have a learning experience to
And
do
what did it
better.
teach us? What do
Hmm.
we want different? If we want something different, we have to do something different.
Amen to that. That's show
I
right
mean,
there.
it's so simple. It's so simple if you think about it. For me, it was I love to sing. I love to sing. And so back in 1990, there was this new thing called karaoke. And I went there and I was scared to death. But there was this little voice inside me that was like, oh, what the heck? You know, the worst thing you can do is get booed off the stage.
Right.
I didn't get booed. There was no hook that, there was no drop floor or anything like that. So, no danger. But what I discovered was that if you face your fear, you might find a gift.
Mm, amen to that. You show right. I do karaoke, but most people boo me off the stage. I can't sing and hold a lick. Nobody asked you nothing. She said, talk about my singing. And John tells me all the time, Benny, keep your day job. You're not a singer. And now my voice, as I got older and got scratchy and everything, I do love to sing, but what I sing is church songs. I sing, I love my different, I hate to say his name, R. Kelly, but I love R. Kelly, and I love certain songs. But when I'm in the shower, I'm singing my church songs or Amazing Grace and things like that that just make me feel good inside. And it's good to, like they said, they even say that when you pray and preach, do it in a sing-song manner, because the frequencies and the vibration, it's like just don't go praying, oh God, can you please help me get a job, and can you everybody's always asking for something, but why
Right,
not thank him for what you do, God? Thank him
right,
for life. And these positive words and affirmations, they make a difference. Don't never talk bad about yourself to people out there, because oh, I'm a stupid and stuff, because the body hears and reacts to that. Like
yeah,
Aurora said it so good in that show that you had the other day, that she said that people don't understand that they're giving out, when they give out negativity or be a negative person, that's what you're putting out to the universe. And if you
right,
understand quantum entanglement represents that there can be things way away from you that's a part of you, light years away, but
right.
instantaneously bringing it back. So what you put out there is what's coming back to you.
Mhm.
So when you put that negativity out to yourself or to others, that you're doing nothing but building a mountain of negativity that's going to eventually affect you. And that deals with like the karma and stuff that people go through, which is, that's why, me myself, I try. I'm not perfect, but I try to stay in PMA, positive mental attitude. And I try, when I see other people, I try to bring a smile to their face. I don't just,
Mhm.
when people ask me for money, I don't just give it to them. But those people that I see that need it are out there, I'm here to help them. Or,
Right.
we had seen a lady just the other day, just last night, and she was just walking with no shoes on. She was holding her pants, and you could tell she just needed some water or something to drink. Early this
Right.
morning, when I text you, and I stopped. I gave her a couple dollars, 50 cents. I was like, She was like, "Oh, God bless you." I said, "No." I said, "God's blessing you." And
Yeah,
I was like, "You're welcome." I said, "Get you something to drink. Enjoy your day."
right.
And went, from there. And from when she went from frowning and limping, walking in there, she just, I could see at the counter, she just stopped and gave that look like, wow, like God did it. You know what I mean? Like, I might
And
have
she
prayed.
recognized the fact that it was the Holy Spirit working through you to help her.
Yeah,
Now, I
absolutely.
want
Yeah.
to just say one thing. I'm going to hold up my tiny little Bible here, and I'm hoping that you can see it. But right there, it says Psalm 100, right?
Hmm.
Well, Psalm 100 is a song. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all
Right.
ye, all ye lands. And you can literally sing the entire thing.
That's
Now, if
awesome.
you're singing the Bible, if we were singing those positive things, what would we be manifesting instead of all those negative thoughts of, I'm not good enough. I
Right.
didn't do well enough. I'm a terrible person because I said the wrong thing at the wrong time. No, you're
No, you did.
human. We all
Yeah.
make mistakes. No
Hmm.
one is perfect. There was one perfect, and that was Yeshua ben Miriam,
Hmm. And
Jesus.
yes, and he was a Christ. He was a Christ. That's not his name. He was a Christ, and his that name Jesus is a powerful word that was given
Mhm.
to us because of his ascended mastery. He's an ascended master, and God bless. I love that. That verse that you had just read. I see our sister Karina Bovey's out there. You speak the
Hello,
words into
baby.
physical
My
existence.
goodness,
I love
yes.
it. We love
Yeah.
you, Karina. Glad
So
everything's going so well with you out there.
she says, let's see if I can see it here. Oh, yes, you speak words into physical existence. Yes, that's exactly correct because what else is a spell? It is your
Mhm.
intention. What is a prayer?
Gotcha,
It is your intention. You know,
gotcha.
what did we have to do when I was a little kid? If we had to learn a lesson, we had to write it 100 times and hand it to the teacher.
I remember those days.
We had strict teachers back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, they hammered it into us back in the day. And if I didn't get it that way, hey, they had corporal punishment back then. So I got a lot of swats as a kid. I wasn't a bad kid. I was too, like my sister always said, Dale, you always been too smart for your own good. Karina says, I remember those days. I wish y'all remember some of the days when I was getting swats and y'all would have came and take them from me, Karina.
I tried not to get into trouble. In fact, my principal never knew me. I never
Mm,
got in trouble. What I did do though was I entertained a lot because I learned at a very young age that if you have a talent, they don't pick on you at school as much. If you're
right,
singing to them all the time, and for
right.
me, I don't know how, but I remember listening to the radio and being able to remember all the words of the song so
Wow.
I could sing it back after I heard it.
Well, my name is Benny, so I got traumatized. Well, not traumatized. I got, but Benny and the Jets. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, would y'all please quit saying it? I got tired of hearing him. And I liked the song and I got sick of it. I
Mm,
still, but
there
yeah,
wasn't really much that rhymed with Kristen. So,
yeah.
the closest one I think was Sister Christian.
Hmm.
So, I'll take it. No, but
But yeah,
my last name used to be Rollison, and my lineage it started with Rollo the Viking. So, being son of Rollo, Rollo son, right? Well, my
right.
little brother decided it was going to be Rollo Ton.
Hmm.
So, yeah. And so his last name started with a D, and so I called him Drano.
Drano.
Yeah, we were not kind to each other. We, to this day, are not kind to each other. I try, really try hard. But he's also snarky that I just kind of keep my distance. Now, I have lots of brothers and sisters to choose from because in our family, well, two of them passed away, but there are still 11 of us left. So
Wow.
the only one that I do not get along with is the one I was raised with.
Hmm.
Isn't that funny?
Wow.
Because in his mind, I can do nothing right.
Right.
But in my mind, he has done amazing for himself.
Right.
So, do you see the difference in the energy there? You know?
It's in your, the perspective of how we look at things. And and like I said, one thing that I've been preaching, not preaching like a preacher, but preaching to people, is to make sure that you keep yourself on the positive side of your own thinking, because we
Yes,
get pulled down into so many negative things that we feel there is no way out. And what we as humans should give each other is hope. And
yes,
that's the main thing, that the blessings come to us by giving other people hope in conversation, or letting them understand that, hey, you've done nothing wrong, learn from it, or do better from it. Let's move on past it, because when we dwell on something in the past, like I was talking about time travel, you put your mind back into that same loop of the past. Get out of
yes.
that past, move to the future, do something positive to where you're changing that. It's time to put these wings on and let's fly. I got my wings. I'm ready to go, man. That's why I got you, Krista, so you can help me fly.
Absolutely happy to help. Well, it is also that in Chinese astrology this year it is the year of the fire horse, which means that, a lot of new chapters, a lot of new beginnings, a lot of new destinations, if we have the courage to let go of what was holding us down.
Right,
That is
right,
the if and then. It's like, okay, whenever we really need something, right? If we set our intention that we need this, we're not going to blow our money or energy or whatever on other things until we have that thing that we absolutely want and need, right?
correct. That's right.
That's the formula. You build it up until you have it. And you just keep imagining that you have it until you actually do. Sometimes
Thank you,
it's
man.
immediate and
Right.
sometimes it takes time. But if it's meant for you, it will be.
That's right. That's right. You show right there. And that's what I believe in. Like I tell people here in Kansas City that now came back from Houston. I like to talk about the situation why I had to leave, because it deals with the record label. And I left everything. And I prayed to God, because I've been through this situation where most people, where they would get stressed out, and some people would probably think about suicide. But I kept my faith. I knew that, even sometime when I had nothing to eat and everything else, and I'm starting from scratch, and back here in my hometown that I grew up in, where I was the man back in the day, to where I'm broke. But I prayed to God, and now that, I stayed, I stayed the path in doing what I had to do, and and I pushed myself where I hadn't been doing it, because everything had came so easy to me before. Where God had woke me up to, look, it's time for you to push one more time to show you can do it. And now where I'm at now, like I said, I have two vehicles, I have a nice car, a great place to stay, people around me that love me, I'm financially stable, I'm doing positive things with folks like you, and that's what I'm trying to stay with. And
Right,
I know that, it was a blessing for keeping my faith, you know, keeping my faith in what I believe. And, and I want to make sure that everyone out there knows also, I down nobody's religion. I don't care
right,
what your religion. If it's something that's working and positive for you, then stay with it. Do
right,
that. Get into it and help, just shine from that part. You don't have to push your religion on anyone, but push what the positives are that comes up out of it, helping
right.
others. talking to others, doing what you can for humanity, because we have to stop thinking about just ourselves and just those immediate around us, because we have to think that collective consciousness is going to be us as humanity changing. And when we get to that, that's when we're going to really be able to see the positive changes that were meant for us as humans that got
Yes.
taken away from us.
Yeah.
Cognitive dissonance and just the ancient loops that we still, some people just still caught up in. And, that's why we do stuff like this, is try to bring us about.
I believe that humanity has been unfairly influenced.
I believe so too.
I believe that there are archonic forces out there that are negatively influencing people to behave in manners that are not benevolent. And to the many races, not just human, the many races that inhabit our world, not all humans are negative.
Correct.
Many of us hold a love frequency that is accepting of you.
Right.
Unfortunately, those that still live in fear and are service to self probably will not ascend to see humanity embrace their space cousins, because that's what I see them as, is space cousins. There was
Yeah.
a there was something I saw recently that 65,000 years ago there was an experiment that took humanity in its early phases and took it off to another galaxy, and that galaxy developed faster than we did. They were not so concerned about war. So it is some of those people that are now trying to contact us because we are their cousins and they want to enlighten us. Oh yeah, that's Orion.
Yeah, you made it for me. You painted it for me. Yep. Orion and those Pleiades. I can't say Pleiades.
Pleiades.
Pleiades. I can
Pleiades.
never say that word correct for
Mm.
nothing. You
Well,
know, and I was just, me, I'm always watching stuff. I was just what you just said is it's kind of key, because it was talking about the seven sisters. If people know what the star grouping through the Pleiades and all that, the seven sisters and how important that they were. Uh-oh, I see, I got you thinking over there. Something something
I'm
came up.
going
I
to
know.
forget my Pleiades picture.
Yes, because I
We're
know that you have
watching.
a bunch of
We're
constellations.
moving right now. Yep, we're going down the hallway. So if it gets a little deep, forgive me. But
The
yeah, I
seven
don't know.
sisters. I studied a little bit on it. I need to do more because something's just drawing me towards that constellation. The seven sisters. Yes, there it is. That's awesome. And it just it when you start to, if you're at home, Google, do whatever AI and Google what was the seven sisters constellation and what are they associated with. And it's a lot that some food for thought for us there. I love that you got all those different constellations up on your wall, man. You,
Yes,
she's
and
got the universe.
this is the Lyran constellation also.
Hmm.
I have all 13 astrological signs painted on my wall, but then I also have Lyra and the Pleiades. And the star that I most relate to in the Pleiades is Alcyone. It's
Mm,
like, if I were to describe it as when you look up in the night sky, if mom and dad are right here, it's right there. And then up
right.
here, like in this corner, is Tegeta. And I think I had a lifetime there too, but I'm not sure because in our existence, they are gaseous stars, but they're, as I understand it, were planets at one time that were associated with the Pleiades, and that's how people that say that they are Pleiadian can
Mhm.
be from there, because In an alternate universe, in an alternate timeline, anything can be, right?
That's right. That's right. Let me send another shout out. I see a friend of mine, Brian Zimmer, that used to live on my block when we, like I said, when I went to elementary school. Hey, Brian, I see him out there. He says, "Pretty lady" to you, Kristen. He's like a
Oh,
little brother to me, Brian Zimmer, right there. I see Karina says, "It is how we can all unite, respecting and helping others as we would want." Amen to that. I
well,
see Sarah Gerard out there. Hey, Sarah, Karina, I see everything. You guys are awesome. And what's really great, what I was just watching again, like I said, that it talks about that when you're outside and you're looking up at the night sky, and how sometimes you sit there and you kind of get lost off into it and just feel the longing for home. And
yeah,
what it's talking about was just understanding that we know we're not just from this planet.
no,
That energy that's inside of you, that light being, comes from somewhere else. And that's
yeah,
what you're looking at. It's those lights up there, and some of them are just drawing you to remember. And that's what you're doing. You're remembering that some things are in you that want to come out. But like I said, it takes steps and understanding who you are to start to understand these things. And then, hey, that's when ascension starts. A lot of people get that word misconstrued with thinking that, okay, you're gonna ascend, like just start levitating and you're gonna go up and you would. No, that's not what ascension is. It's the awakening of your true self. And as you learn, you get awakened, but that doesn't mean you've already ascended to these certain levels. Jesus was already awakened from birth and
right.
was an ascended master to teach us to ascend, to let us understand that the resurrection comes from us. When we die, we will resurrect into that spirit being that we already was before we jumped into this body. So,
Well, you understand it is that when our customer used to say, when the clay pot breaks, meaning our body, we go back
mhm,
to source. And I believe that when we go back to source, we are asked, did you learn everything, experience everything, good or bad, that you would like to have experienced? Because in these bodies, you can do that. When you are energy, you cannot.
right.
So, you learned everything that you want to. If you have, you are welcome to stay with me for as long as you want. If you have not,
Mhm.
go back to Earth and learn your lessons. Or sometimes we hear the call of family members. We're just hanging out there basking in the glory of Source, right? But a
Right,
family member will call on us and say, I need help. And
right,
boom, whether it is through us or our children. I mean, Source knows what's going to happen in the future. We don't. Our
exactly.
children could do something incredibly important, and we won't know about it until we have them. You know, it's amazing when you play the time is not linear game and you can imagine all of these different, like, people say, oh, I had this lifetime and that lifetime. Well, what if you're having them right now?
Right.
What if you can
Timeline.
remember because you're just tapping into a different frequency?
That's right. That's right. You're aligning yourself with that frequency. Amen. Just to blow some people's mind, just imagine what Kristen just said, that you're that soul and you leave in this body. And you got to understand that these timelines, like I was saying earlier, is with the past, the present, and the now are all right now, because it's only now. Like when I just said that, that's the past, but it's only now. So when that soul has that ability to gain these experiences, some of you all don't know that this doesn't mean that that soul has to go back to the future to the next one. That soul can reincarnate into a past. Go back to the Egypt time or whatever, because these timelines are running. They're running parallel. They're running. So that's where some of us feel that oh, we lived a past life and things like that. You might be seeing the future of you going back to the past.
Right.
It's
It's
kind of
fun
crazy
to
to think
play.
about what
It's
conscious
fun
means.
to play with that because you can be like, you can set an intention. You really can. Okay, if I am going back to that timeline,
Hmm.
that lifetime, I want to find evidence that I lived then. You can actually do this, right?
Right.
Because I played a little game when I first met you, and I played a little game of how do I know you before I knew you? How do I know you? You seem so darn familiar to me, Benny. How do I know you? And so I asked you, did you see ancient Egypt? And you said yes. And I said, do you see me there during that time? And you said yes. Well, I saw you there too. And then another person, was it Susan, I think? She said
No, it
she
was,
could see, she could
no.
literally see superimposed over my current existence,
Hmm.
my ancient Egyptian lifetime. Because what if I'm still living it?
Hmm. You are. And I believe Tony, when we did the with the choline and everything, she
Mhm.
even also said she seen me and you,
Yeah.
and we all us together in Egypt doing something, and
Well, we
that's what kind of a hit, because like I tell her that I've seen Tony in a couple of different
so
scenarios in her past, and some of them
right.
are great. And that spirit of Mary Magdalene is in her. That
Yeah.
spirit of Mary Magdalene. Now, I try to tell people I didn't say that she was her. The
Yeah.
spirit of these
It's
different
a
things,
shard. A
what we
shard
we
of the spirit,
hmm
right?
and
If
that
you
yeah.
if you imagine, okay, I guess I should explain this better. If you imagine a piece of crystal, right, and you smash it on the floor and it breaks into 1,000 pieces, that little piece is still a crystal, part of the
Uh-huh.
original crystal, but it is a shard, a tiny little piece. That is what I believe that we tap into when we tap into our oversoul. And our oversoul is connected to source. And we are also, connected to that Christos consciousness through those shards. That
Right.
beautiful light energy, when we believe in the light, it glows through us. It doesn't
Hmm.
need to have a label put on it other than light.
Yes. True
If
light.
you know a true light-filled person, they're not out there committing heinous acts.
Right.
They're finding ways to help.
That's right. And we have to use our three brains. We don't have just one brain. We have a brain that's up here. Your heart is a brain, and your gut is a brain. Your gut, when they say your gut instincts, you need to listen to your gut instincts, follow your heart, and understand your brain,
Yes.
because your brain is not the main thing. That's just the power plant for this avatar that you're going through. But your consciousness, your and all of that roams in there, in that third eye that connects us, which that's what the eye that Jesus was saying, that you're going to see through when you're able to understand that instead of looking at everything, and because we only see in 1% of the light spectrum,
Right.
that's we can't see everything that's going on. And that's done for a reason, because this wasn't what we was really meant to be. This was what, for you to have that type of experience. You only need to see that, just like a football player. You got rules on the field. You know what I'm saying? You can only do this, you can only do that. And that's what we have, is these human concept rules. But you've got archons, or as we say, the demi what's it
Urge.
called? Antichrist agenda, not
Mm.
person, agendas out there that just want to keep you from that, because you're dangerous to them. If you
Yeah.
can't be trapped and controlled to pay these taxes through all this chaos, and if you don't understand, you won't. And that's where they want you to be.
Mm. Ministers don't like me when I walk
Blinded and
into the
enslaved.
church. Oh, you're fading in and out, Benny. I couldn't hear you.
Well, it's because my phone was ringing, so I was
Mm.
trying to clear the thing off there. People always want to bother me when I'm talking to you, Kristen. They can't keep us from each other. Hey, we're Wonder Twins. Powers activate.
Activate, exactly.
Yeah,
Well, we did go a little longer than my normal, just a moment.
I know
So,
you go. You know I
anything else
talk a
that
lot.
anything else that you would like to tell the audience before we have to go?
The main thing that it's wonderful being on your show, and I'm so grateful that we're part of the same productions now with Love First Productions, and I know that that's where our heart's at, love first, because that's what we have to do is try to
Mm.
love first, and you don't have to just love with I love you, and things like that. Use your actions, use your deeds, use your intelligence, and think with your heart. You can't you can see with your eyes, feel with your heart.
Yeah.
Feel what you need to do, and you know what's right and wrong, and make those choices. Because, like I said, if you get caught up in doing something and you know it ain't right, you're gonna keep your mind in that loop, and you have to break those chains. Because we have to love each other. We have to give each other hope, just like what we're doing now, and that's so important to me. And with that, I say peace and love to everybody out there, and I love you all, and I wish you all the best. Especially you, Kristen, Mr. Paul. Love you guys. You guys are my brothers and brother and sister there. And I'm just so glad that you do this. You do it twice a week. I need to get my butt back up and doing a show at least once a week. But you're so positive, and I thank you for it, Kristen.
Well, it is a joy. It's a joy working with you. It's a joy working with Love First. And thank you for having me. Thank you also for being a guest on my show. I hope you'll come back.
Oh, for sure. I will.
Excellent.
I will.
That is all for now, my dear friends. Thank you so much for joining us. Never forget that you are amazing. You are loved. Be well, be safe out there. And I'll see you on the next show. Bye.
Peace and love.